In a world where loyalty is twisted into a weapon to destroy others, one small mistake is enough to turn a person into an enemy. They called me a traitor. But that very betrayal created a monster they never saw coming. I didn't return to beg for my old position back. I came back to bury them on the very ground they thought belonged to them alone. This is my story of how their accusation of lack of loyalty became the catalyst for their own downfall. My name is Madeline Carter, Maddie to those who once called themselves my friends. At 32, I was everything corporate America promised you could be if you just worked hard enough, sharp, ambitious, and rapidly climbing the ladder at Silverline Media Group, one of the most influential media conglomerates in the industry. Briarwood City was undergoing a transformation when I first arrived 5 years ago. The old factories and warehouses were being converted into sleek, creative studios and trendy co-working spaces. It was the perfect backdrop for someone like me, hungry, driven, and ready to prove that a girl from nowhere could become somebody in this glittering new world of digital media and content creation. My corner office on the 14th floor had a view of the entire downtown district. I'd earned it through countless late nights, pitched campaigns that saved dying brands, and strategies that put Silverline ahead of every competitor. The brass nameplate on my door read, Senior Vice President of Strategic Communications. I'd trace my fingers over those letters sometimes, still amazed at how far I'd come. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Coffee at 6:30, emails by 7 nows, first meeting at 8 sharp. I was reviewing quarterly reports when David Harrington, our CFO, walked into my office without knocking, a first red flag I should have noticed. Maddie, we need to talk about the Brennan Industries account, he said, closing the door behind him. The Brennan account was our biggest client, worth $40 million annually. I'd personally secured it 18 months ago. What about it? I asked, noting how he wouldn't meet my eyes. There's been some irregularities in the billing, overcharges, hidden fees, about $3 million worth. My stomach dropped. That's impossible. I review every invoice personally. I know what you review, he interrupted, sliding a folder across my desk. But these are the real numbers, the ones that went to Brennan. I opened the folder. The documents inside were forgeries, but sophisticated ones. They bore my digital signature, my authorization codes. Someone had been skimming from our biggest client and making it look like my doing. David, this isn't... I know it's not you, he said quietly. But Caroline wants this buried. She needs you to sign off on a revised report. Say it was a computer error. Authorize a small refund. Make it go away. Caroline Whitmore, our CEO. The woman who'd mentored me, promoted me, called me the daughter she never had at last year's company gala. She's stealing from clients? My voice was barely a whisper. She's protecting the company's reputation. The board doesn't need to know. No one needs to know. Just sign the papers, Maddie. Be loyal to the team. Loyal. That word hung in the air like a noose. I looked at the papers again. Signing them would make me complicit in fraud. Not signing them. Well, I was about to find out what that would cost me. I need time to think, I said. David's expression hardened. You have until tomorrow morning. Caroline expects your answer by 9. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my apartment, staring at the city lights, weighing my options. Every instinct screamed at me to protect myself, to sign those papers and keep my life intact. But I kept thinking about the ethics classes I'd taken, the speeches I'd given about corporate responsibility, the person I'd promised myself I'd be. The next morning, I walked into Caroline's office with the unsigned documents. I see, she said, her voice arctic. You choose self-righteousness over loyalty? I choose integrity over fraud, I replied. She smiled then, a cold, calculating smile that made my blood run cold. No, Maddie. You chose unemployment over success. Security will escort you out. You have 10 minutes to clear your desk. You can't fire me for refusing to commit fraud. I'm not, she interrupted. I'm firing you for mishandling the Brennan account. For the very discrepancies you discovered. After all, your signature is on everything, isn't it? The trap snapped shut around me. She'd planned this. Either I'd sign and become her accomplice, or I'd refuse and take the fall. As security watched me pack my desk, my colleagues, people I'd worked with for years, people I'd called friends, avoided my eyes. The whispers had already started. By lunch, everyone would know that Maddie Carter had been fired for stealing from clients, for betraying the company that had given her everything. The word betrayal followed me out of the building. But they had it backwards. I wasn't the betrayer, I was the betrayed. The fall from grace is never gradual. It's a violent plunge that leaves you gasping for air at the bottom. Within 48 hours of leaving Silverline, my entire life had unraveled like a cheap sweater with one pulled thread. My phone, once buzzing constantly with messages and opportunities, went silent. Former colleagues who'd promised to stay in touch and grab coffee soon disappeared into the digital void. LinkedIn connections quietly severed ties. My professional network, built over a decade, evaporated overnight. The Briarwood City professional scene is smaller than people think. Word travels fast, especially when it's poison. Did you hear about Maddie Carter, caught embezzling $3 million? Can you believe it? The story grew with each retelling, morphing from rumor to accepted fact. No one asked for my side, no one wanted to hear it. I'd gone from a luxury high-rise apartment to a studio in Eastbrook, the forgotten part of Briarwood where the city's transformation hadn't reached. The building smelled of mildew and broken dreams. My new view was a brick wall and someone else's rusted fire escape. 600 square feet to contain what was left of my life after I'd sold everything to pay legal fees for a lawsuit I couldn't afford to fight. The interview rejections came swift and brutal. We've decided to go in a different direction. The position has been filled internally. You're overqualified for this role. But I knew the truth. My name was toxic. Caroline had made sure of that, spreading word through every professional channel that I was a liability, untrustworthy, disloyal. Marcus left on a Thursday. We'd been together 3 years, talked about marriage, children, a future built on shared ambitions. He sat across from me at the dingy coffee shop I could still afford, fidgeting with his Princeton class ring. "I can't do this, Maddie," he said, not meeting my eyes. "My firm. They're concerned about appearances. Dating someone under investigation for corporate theft, it's affecting my partnership track." "You know I didn't do it," I said, my voice hollow. "Does it matter?" He stood up, leaving a 20 on the table like I was a charity case. "Perception is reality in our world. You taught me that." Yes, I had taught him that. The irony wasn't lost on me. The days blurred together in that cramped studio. Morning became afternoon, became night, measured only by the shifting shadows on the brick wall outside my window. I'd wake at 3 a.m., heart racing, reliving the moment Caroline's trap snapped shut. I'd spend hours crafting cover letters for jobs I knew I'd never get, tailoring resumes for positions beneath my experience but still out of reach. My savings dwindled. First went the designer clothes, sold online for a fraction of their cost. Then the jewelry, the watches, the bags that had once signified my success. Each sale felt like shedding another piece of who I'd been, until I barely recognized the woman staring back from the cracked bathroom mirror. The grocery store became a minefield of shame. Generic brands replaced organics. Ramen replaced restaurants. I learned to shop at 9 p.m. when markdowns happened, standing alongside others who'd fallen through society's cracks. We avoided eye contact, united in our quiet desperation. One particularly dark night, I sat on the floor of my studio, surrounded by rejection emails printed out like evidence of my failure. The walls felt like they were closing in, the weight of everything crushing me into something smaller, harder, unrecognizable. My laptop screen glowed with Silverline's latest press release, record quarterly profits under visionary leadership of CEO Caroline Whitmore. Her smiling photo mocked me. She'd won. Completely. Devastatingly. I could have surrendered then, could have accepted this as my new reality, forgotten, discarded, destroyed by those who'd promised to have my back. The world expected me to disappear quietly, to accept my fate as another casualty of corporate warfare. But as I sat in that darkness, something shifted inside me. The pain didn't disappear. It crystallized into something else. Purpose, fury, determination. They'd taken everything from me based on a lie. They'd branded me disloyal when I was the only one who'd stood for the truth. They'd thrown me away like garbage when I refused to be corrupted. I stood up slowly, my reflection in the laptop screen showing someone I didn't recognize, hollow cheeks, dark circles, hair unwashed for days. But the eyes burned with something new. "You want to see disloyalty?" I whispered to Caroline's photo. "You want to see what happens when you create an enemy with nothing left to lose?" I closed the laptop and made a decision. I would not fade away. I would not accept their narrative. I would not let them win. If they'd destroyed Maddie Carter, the eager-to-please corporate climber, then I'd become something else entirely, something they'd never see coming. That night, for the first time since my fall, I didn't cry myself to sleep. I lay awake planning, scheming, transforming my pain into power. They thought they'd ended my story. They were wrong. They'd just written the first chapter of their own destruction. Rebirth doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in small, painful steps taken when your feet are bleeding and the path ahead is dark. My transformation began in the public library on 5th Street, the only place with free Wi-Fi and heating that didn't require me to buy something I couldn't afford. I started with research, not job hunting. That was a dead end. Instead, I studied everything Silverline had discarded over the years. Every freelancer they'd blacklisted, every startup they'd crushed, every creative voice they'd silenced for not fitting their corporate mold. The list was longer than I'd imagined. The library became my office. 8 hours a day, sometimes 12. I sat at the same corner table, learning skills I'd never needed in my executive bubble. HTML coding from free online tutorials, social media algorithms from YouTube videos watched with subtitles to save battery on my dying laptop, digital marketing strategies that didn't require million-dollar budgets. My hands cramped from taking notes in 99-cent notebooks. My eyes burned from staring at screens. But each new skill was a weapon I was adding to my arsenal. Late nights were the hardest. After the library closed, I'd return to my studio and continue working by the light of my phone, teaching myself video editing software I downloaded during the library's free hours. I lived on instant coffee and determination, sleeping 3, maybe 4 hours before starting again. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Tommy Nguyen, a brilliant content creator Silverline had sued into bankruptcy 2 years ago for copyright infringement, really just for becoming too popular without their control. I found him working at an electronics repair shop in Eastbrook. "Maddie Carter," he said when I introduced myself, his voice flat. "Silverline's golden girl." "Former golden girl," I corrected. "They destroyed me too." He laughed bitterly. "And you want what? Sympathy?" "No. I want revenge, and I think you do too." That got his attention. We met at a 24-hour diner where coffee refills were free. I laid out my vision, a media company built on everything Silverline wasn't: transparent, creator-focused, unafraid of truth. "With what money?" Tommy asked. "We don't need money, we need talent. And everyone Silverline has burned has talent they were afraid of." Over weeks, I tracked down more casualties of Silverline's corporate machine. Sarah Martinez, an investigative journalist fired for asking too many questions about advertising conflicts of interest. She was bartending nights, writing a blog no one read. James Park, a programmer who developed an algorithm Silverline stole and patented, leaving him with nothing. He was driving for a rideshare company, coding in his spare time. We met in my studio, 4 broken people sitting on the floor, sharing cheap wine and expensive dreams. The space was embarrassing, but no one commented. We'd all fallen far. "We can't compete with their resources," Sarah said. We don't need to, I replied. We compete with truth, with authenticity, with everything they're not. I showed them my research, months of documenting Silverline's patterns, their weaknesses, their abandoned markets, the niches they ignored because they weren't profitable enough, the audiences they'd alienated with corporate sanitization. Start small, I proposed. Build something they won't see as a threat until it's too late. We worked like people possessed. Sarah started investigating stories mainstream media wouldn't touch. Tommy created content that was raw, unfiltered, real. James built a platform that prioritized creator rights and transparent analytics. I coordinated, strategized, and learned to leverage every free tool available. My days became 18-hour marathons, writing pitch decks on free Google Docs, creating presentations on borrowed computers, recording videos on a phone held together with tape. Every no taught me something. Every failure refined the approach. I discovered I could survive on 4 hours of sleep. That hunger sharpened focus. That anger, properly channeled, was the most powerful motivator in existence. The studio apartment transformed into a makeshift headquarters. Whiteboards made from taped-up printer paper covered the walls. Extension cords snaked everywhere, borrowed from neighbors who pitied me enough to help. We called ourselves the refugees, those who'd escaped Silverline's destruction. 6 months in, living on ramen and rage, we landed our first client. A small nonprofit Silverline had dropped for not being profitable enough. They paid us almost nothing, but it was a start. We delivered a campaign that doubled their donations in 3 weeks. Word spread through the underground, the blacklisted, the terminated, the discarded. There was a new option. A place where Silverline's rejects were building something different. I learned to code until my eyes blurred, to edit video until my fingers went numb, to pitch ideas on 3 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. Every skill Silverline had outsourced, I absorbed. Every task they deemed beneath executive attention, I mastered. The weight I'd lost made me look harder, hungrier. The exhaustion carved new lines into my face, but in my eyes, that fire Carolyn had lit with her betrayal grew stronger every day. One night, working by candlelight after forgetting to pay the electricity bill, Tommy looked at me and said, "You're not the same person who walked into that repair shop." He was right. Maddie Carter, the polished executive, was dead. In her place stood someone forged in failure, hardened by humiliation, and sharpened by sacrifice. "Good," I replied, watching our latest video pass 10,000 views. That person was weak. She believed in loyalty to institutions instead of people. She trusted systems designed to exploit her. I stood up, looking at our makeshift office, at these brilliant people working for almost nothing because they believed in something bigger than profit margins. They wanted to teach me about loyalty, I said. They succeeded. I'm loyal now, to everyone they threw away. The ember of revenge in my chest had become an inferno, and I was just getting started. The birth of Ironclad Communications happened at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. In my studio that now housed 5 people working on laptops powered by a maze of extension cords. Sarah looked up from her investigation into corporate media manipulation and said, "We need a real name, something that means something." "Ironclad," I said without hesitation, "because our word will be unbreakable, our truth undeniable." Tommy designed our logo that night, a stylized shield that looked like it was forged from recycled corporate lies. By dawn, we were no longer refugees. We were a company. Our first office was the abandoned print shop in Eastbrook. The rent paid 3 months in advance with every penny we'd scraped together. The windows were cracked, the heating barely worked, and the floors creaked with every step. But it was ours. No corporate overlord could take it away. The team grew organically. Lisa Wong, a former Silverline accountant who'd been fired for questioning suspicious transactions, became our CFO. She worked for equity because we couldn't afford salaries. Marcus Rodriguez, not my ex, but a video editor whose entire department Silverline had outsourced to save costs, joined after seeing Tommy's work online. Each person brought not just skills, but but scars. We bonded over our shared exile. We're like the island of misfit toys, James joked during one late-night session. Except, we're building weapons. Our first major break came from an unexpected source. A whistleblower reached out to Sarah about a major corporation dumping toxic waste while running green advertising campaigns. Silverline had killed the story when it was brought to them. The corporation was a major advertiser. We ran it. The video expose, produced on equipment held together with duct tape and prayers, went viral overnight. 3 million views in 48 hours. Real journalists started calling, asking who we were, how we'd gotten the story. Local news picked it up, then national. Silverline noticed. I was reviewing analytics when Lisa burst in. Someone's trying to buy our domain name, offering $50,000. Through shell companies, James added, pulling up the trace he'd run. But the money trail leads back to Silverline. My first instinct was to take it. We desperately needed the money. But then I remembered Caroline's smile as she destroyed me. Tell them it's not for sale. Not for $50,000. Not for $50 million. Instead, we doubled down. Sarah's investigations became more aggressive. Tommy's content grew bolder. We started a podcast called The Blacklist, featuring stories from people destroyed by corporate media. Each episode was a small rebellion. Our second office expansion happened when the vintage clothing store next door went bankrupt. We knocked down the wall ourselves, Tommy, James, and I, swinging sledgehammers while Sarah live-streamed it with the caption, "Breaking down barriers, literally." The metaphor wasn't subtle, but subtlety was a luxury we couldn't afford. The work was brutal. 20-hour days became normal. I learned to power nap in 15-minute increments. Food was whatever someone remembered to order. My wardrobe consisted of 3 black t-shirts and 2 pairs of jeans, rotated endlessly. But every small victory, every new client who chose truth over polish, every creator who joined our platform, every view on our exposés fed the fire. We developed a reputation. Ironclad was where you went when you wanted real stories, not corporate propaganda. Our subscriber base grew from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands. Small businesses started approaching us, wanting authentic marketing instead of Silverline's glossy lies. The day we hit our first million in revenue, we celebrated with champagne in plastic cups in our patched-together office, but I couldn't fully enjoy it. This wasn't the destination, it was just base camp. We need to be bigger, I told the team. Louder, impossible to ignore. We need investors, Lisa said practically. I knew she was right, but traditional investors would want us to play nice, to moderate our message. We needed believers, not just backers. The solution came from our audience. We launched a crowdfunding campaign, offering small equity stakes to our supporters. Own a piece of the media revolution. Tommy's campaign video declared, we asked for $500,000. We raised $2 million in 3 weeks. Every dollar came from someone Silverline had ignored, dismissed, or destroyed. Former employees who'd been downsized, small businesses priced out of traditional advertising, creators whose content had been stolen or suppressed. They weren't just investing money, they were investing in revenge. With real funding, we moved fast. Better equipment, actual salaries, health insurance, a luxury none of us had had in over a year. We hired more refugees from Silverline's scorched earth policy. Each one brought intelligence, insider knowledge, and burning motivation. I stood in our new conference room with actual walls and windows that weren't cracked, looking at our team of 25. Former Silverline employees made up half. The other half were people Silverline would never have hired, too unconventional, too honest, too dangerous. They called us disloyal, I said during our first all-hands meeting. They were right. We are disloyal to corruption, to lies, to the old way of doing business. Our loyalty is to truth, to creators, to the people, mass media left behind. The applause was fierce, hungry. These weren't employees. They were soldiers in a war Silverline didn't yet realize they were fighting. That night, I finally moved out of the studio apartment into a modest one-bedroom. As I packed my few belongings, I found the printed rejection emails I'd saved from my darkest days. I almost threw them away, then stopped. I taped them to my new bathroom mirror instead. Morning reminders of where I'd been and why I was fighting. Ironclad Communications was no longer a revenge fantasy. It was real, profitable, and growing. We were still David to Silverline's Goliath. But David had won that fight. And I was just getting started with mine. The collision was inevitable. 2 years after my exile from Silverline, Ironclad had grown too big to ignore. We'd just exposed a pharmaceutical company's price-fixing scheme, a story Silverline had buried because of advertising contracts. The video had 8 million views and counting when my phone rang with a number I'd never forgotten. Maddie. Caroline Whitmore's voice was exactly as I remembered, silk wrapped around steel. It's been too long. Not long enough, I replied, putting her on speaker so Sarah and Tommy could hear. I'll cut to the chase. Your little startup has caught our attention. Silverline wants to acquire Ironclad. 50 million. Cash. You walk away wealthy and whole. The office went silent. 50 million would change everything for everyone here. No. I haven't even sent the terms. The answer is no, Caroline, at any price. Her laugh was crystalline, sharp. You always were too emotional for business. This isn't personal, Maddie. You destroyed my life. You made it personal. I made a business decision. You were collateral damage. Her tone shifted, harder now. This is a generous offer. The alternative is less pleasant. Is that a threat? It's a forecast. You're playing in the big leagues now. Different rules, rougher game. After she hung up, the team gathered around me. 50 million, Lisa whispered. We could all walk away set for life. And let them win, James countered. Let them buy our silence like they've bought everyone else's? I looked at each of them. This isn't just my decision. We built this together. The vote was unanimous. Ironclad wasn't for sale. Silverline's retaliation came swift and brutal. First, our biggest clients started receiving calls. Concerns about working with an unstable company. 3 clients pulled out within a week, citing vague, strategic realignments. Then came the lawsuits. Copyright infringement for using publicly available footage. Defamation for reporting documented facts. Trade secret violations for hiring former Silverline employees. Each suit was baseless, but fighting them would cost hundreds of thousands. They're trying to bleed us dry, Lisa said, showing me the legal bills. But Caroline had underestimated something. We weren't fighting alone anymore. Our audience rallied. A GoFundMe for our legal defense raised $300,000 in 2 days. Pro bono lawyers who'd been burned by corporate media offered help. Our subscriber base doubled as people rallied against Silverline's obvious bullying. The real war began when Sarah uncovered something explosive. Through months of investigation, she traced the financial irregularities I'd been fired for refusing to cover up. The trail led higher than Caroline, to Silverline's board, to offshore accounts, to systematic fraud spanning years. This could destroy them, Sarah said, showing me the evidence. Then, we publish. Tommy created a 10-part series, The Silverline Papers. Each episode revealed another layer of corruption. We released them strategically, 1 per week, building anticipation, making Silverline sweat. Caroline called after episode 3. No pleasantries this time. Stop this immediately, or I'll destroy you. And I don't mean professionally. You already destroyed me professionally, I reminded her. I survived. And now I have nothing left to lose. Everyone has something to lose. Maddie. She was wrong. She'd taken everything that mattered to the old me. But the new me? The one forged in failure and hardened by betrayal? I was untouchable because I'd already been broken and rebuilt myself. Episode 5 featured former Silverline employees. Faces hidden, voices disguised, confirming the toxic culture, the cover-ups, the destroyed careers. My phone exploded with messages from current Silverline employees wanting to share their stories. Caroline tried a different approach. Marcus, my ex, suddenly appeared at our office. "Maddie, we need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about." Caroline sent me. She wants to negotiate. The rage that filled me was white hot. "She sent you? The man who abandoned me when I needed him most?" "I made a mistake. You made a choice, just like I'm making one now. Security. Please escort this man out." We didn't have security, but James, 6'3" and built like someone who knew his way around a fight, stood up. Marcus left quickly. The pressure intensified. Hackers attacked our servers. James fought them off, barely. Anonymous threats appeared under our doors. Health inspectors suddenly found violations in our building. The message was clear: stop or be stopped. I called a team meeting. "Anyone who wants out, no judgment. This is getting dangerous." No one moved. Then we finished this. All in. Episode 8 dropped on a Monday morning, featuring Caroline's own voice, recorded by a brave whistleblower, discussing the fraud, laughing about destroying careers, calling the board useful idiots. Silverline's stock plummeted 30% in one day. Caroline's final call came that night. "You've won. Is that what you want to hear? You've won." "I haven't won anything yet." "What more do you want? You've cost me everything." "I want you to feel what I felt. Standing in an empty office, watching your life's work crumble, knowing everyone you trusted betrayed you." "This won't bring back your old life, Maddie." "I don't want my old life. That life was built on lies, on being complicit in a corrupt system. You did me a favor, Caroline. You freed me to become who I was meant to be." Her silence stretched long. Then, "This isn't over." "No," I agreed. "It's just beginning." The war was now in the open. Silverline versus Ironclad. Goliath had noticed David, and the real battle was about to begin. The escalation came at 2 a.m. when our entire system went dark. Not just a hack, a sophisticated attack that wiped our servers, destroyed backups, and corrupted 18 months of work. James found me standing in our server room, staring at the blank screens. "This is professional," he said quietly. "Military-grade encryption on the virus. This cost someone serious money." Within hours, more dominoes fell. Our banking accounts were frozen due to suspicious activity. The building owner called. We had 72 hours to vacate due to lease violations that hadn't existed yesterday. 3 team members received visits from immigration services about documentation concerns. Despite being citizens, Caroline wasn't just fighting anymore. She was trying to erase us. Sarah burst in, face pale. "My source at the Times just called. Silverline's pushing a story about us fabricating evidence. They have documents proving we doctored the recordings." "Let me guess," I said. "Documents with my signature." "How did you know?" "It's her signature move. She did it to me before." The team gathered in our conference room. 25 people who'd bet everything on this fight. Exhaustion etched every face. Lisa's financial projections covered the whiteboard. Without our accounts, we had maybe 2 weeks of runway. "I can work without pay," Tommy offered immediately. "Same," echoed around the room. "No." I stood up. "You've sacrificed enough. This is my war." "Bullshit," Sarah interrupted. "We all chose this. We all have scars from Silverline." James pulled up his laptop. "I saved something. Off-site backup Caroline's people didn't know about. It's not everything, but it's enough to rebuild. And I have this." Lisa produced a flash drive. "Every financial record, every shady transaction we've documented. I've been paranoid since day one." One by one, they shared what they'd preserved. Documents hidden in personal clouds. Videos cached on private servers. Evidence scattered like insurgent weapons, impossible to destroy completely. "They want to play dirty," Marcus Rodriguez said. "Let's show them what happens when you corner desperate people." We went underground, literally. The basement of the abandoned print shop became our bunker. Extension cords snaked down from the floor above, powering laptops on folding tables. It looked like a resistance hideout because that's what we'd become. While Silverline pushed their fabrication narrative through traditional channels, we fought back through guerrilla tactics. Live streams from phones, social media posts from personal accounts, direct messages to our million-plus subscribers. We couldn't match their reach. But we had something they didn't. Authenticity. Tommy worked 72 straight hours creating a response video. No polish, no corporate sheen. Just raw footage of our destroyed servers, our eviction notice, our exhausted team still working. He titled it, David vs. Goliath, Live. It went viral in 6 hours, comments flooded in. Former Silverline employees shared their stories. Competing media companies, smelling blood in the water, started investigating. Ironclad Strong trended globally. But Caroline had one more card to play. She went after our people personally. Tommy's student loans were suddenly called in for full payment. Sarah's mortgage application was denied. James discovered someone had reported him to Child Protective Services, anonymously, of course. She's trying to break us individually, I told the team. Make it too costly to continue. Then we make it costly for her, Sarah said, eyes blazing. She'd found something new. Caroline has a merger pending, Silverline and Apex Broadcasting, worth $2 billion. But there's a morality clause. Any criminal investigation kills the deal. We don't have enough evidence for criminal charges, Lisa pointed out. Not yet, I said. But we have something else. Senate hearings on media consolidation are next week. What if a certain senator received comprehensive documentation of Silverline's monopolistic practices? It was our nuclear option. Releasing everything to the government meant losing control of the narrative, possibly killing both companies. But we were already dying. Do it. The team voted unanimously. I personally delivered 12 boxes of evidence to Senator Elizabeth Walsh's office. Every document, every recording, every piece of proof we'd gathered. The aide who received them looked overwhelmed. Tell the senator, I said, that this is what happens when media companies get too powerful, when they can destroy anyone who challenges them. Within 48 hours, Caroline was subpoenaed to testify. The merger was suspended pending investigation. Silverline's stock price crashed another 40%. She called one last time, no threats now, just exhaustion in her voice. You've destroyed everything I built. You destroyed everything I built first. The difference is, I rebuilt mine better. The board wants my resignation. 30 years of my life, gone. I got 30 seconds to clear my desk. You'll survive. You're enjoying this. No, I said honestly. I'm not enjoying it, but I'm not sorry either. You taught me that business isn't personal. This is just business. But we were bleeding too. The frozen accounts were killing us. Staff was working without pay. The eviction stood. We had days, maybe a week, before Ironclad collapsed alongside Silverline. That's when the unexpected happened. A call from someone I'd never heard of. Alexandra Foster, CEO of Meridian Media. Ms. Carter, I've been watching your war with Silverline. Impressive, if mutually destructive. I have a proposition that might save your company. I'm listening. Meridian wants to invest in Ironclad. Not acquire, invest. $20 million for 30% equity. You maintain control, keep your team, your vision. We just want a piece of what you're building. Why would you do that? Because Silverline has been a thorn in our side for years. And because you've proven that authentic, honest media has a market. Plus, she laughed. Anyone who can bring down Caroline Whitmore deserves backing. The offer was real. Legal reviewed it, clean terms, no hidden traps. We could survive, even thrive. But taking it meant the war with Silverline would continue indefinitely. Walking away meant letting Caroline's replacement continue her legacy. I looked at my exhausted team, at our makeshift bunker office, at everything we'd built and rebuilt again. The choice was obvious. We took Meridian's deal. The 20 million didn't just save us. It armed us for the final strike. Bank accounts unfrozen. We moved into a real office building, just 3 blocks from Silverline's crumbling empire. The symbolism wasn't subtle. The Senate hearings were scheduled for Thursday. Caroline would testify under oath about Silverline's practices. But we had one last card to play. The ace I'd held back, even from my own team. Remember the Brennan Industries fraud? I asked Sarah during our strategy meeting. The 3 million that started all this? The documents Caroline forged with your signature. Except I kept copies of the real documents. The ones showing the money went to offshore accounts controlled by Caroline personally, not Silverline. The room went silent. You've had proof of personal embezzlement this entire time? Tommy asked. I was waiting for the right moment. That moment is now. Wednesday night, 12 hours before Caroline's testimony, we went live. Not just on our platform, we'd coordinated with 3 competing networks who'd been circling Silverline's corpse. Simultaneous broadcasts reaching 40 million viewers. I sat in our studio, looking directly into the camera. No script, no teleprompter, just truth. 2 years ago, I was fired from Silverline Media for refusing to cover up fraud. They called me disloyal. Tonight, I'm going to show you what loyalty to the truth looks like. Tommy had outdone himself. The production was flawless, documents appearing on screen, highlighted sections zooming in, the money trail animated in real time. We showed everything. Caroline's personal enrichment, the board's complicity, the systematic destruction of anyone who questioned them. But the masterstroke was the employees. Current Silverline staff. Faces hidden, voices disguised, confirming everything. The rebellion wasn't just external anymore, it was inside the walls. We're watching the live stream in the office, one said. Half the company is cheering. Another, she destroyed so many careers. We're done being silent. The stream hit 10 million concurrent viewers. Silverline Falls exploded across social media. News vans surrounded both our buildings. My phone buzzed with interview requests from every major outlet. At 11:47 p.m., breaking news interrupted our broadcast. Caroline Whitmore arrested on federal embezzlement charges. The office erupted. 25 people who'd been broken by Silverline, who'd rebuilt themselves from nothing, who'd fought a war everyone said we couldn't win. We'd done it. But I couldn't celebrate yet. One more move remained. I walked to Silverline's building as the FBI led Caroline out in handcuffs. The media circus was chaos. Flashbulbs, shouted questions, pure mayhem. She saw me through the crowd, our eyes meeting across the battlefield. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just watched as they put her in the car, as everything she'd built collapsed in real time. Silverline's stock trading was halted. The board announced emergency bankruptcy proceedings. 800 employees would lose their jobs by morning. Ms. Carter! A reporter shoved a microphone in my face. How does it feel to destroy the company that destroyed you? I didn't destroy Silverline, I said clearly. Caroline Whitmore did, with greed, corruption, and the belief that loyalty meant silence. We just showed the world what was already rotten. What's next for Ironclad? We're hiring. Any Silverline employee who wants to work for a company that values truth over profit, integrity over stock prices, our doors are open. By dawn, 300 resumes had arrived. We hired 50 immediately, including some who'd participated in my termination. Forgiveness wasn't about them, it was about building something better from the ashes. The Sunday broadcast was our biggest ever. The fall of Silverline, a complete timeline. We didn't sensationalize, didn't need to. The facts were damning enough, but I ended with something unexpected. This isn't a celebration, I said to the camera. A media giant's destruction leaves a void. 800 people lost their jobs. Thousands of stories won't be told. In our hunger for revenge, we must remember that victory isn't just about destroying what wronged us. It's about building something better. I announced Ironclad's new initiative, hiring 500 former Silverline employees within 6 months. launching a fund for independent journalists, creating a fellowship for media professionals destroyed by corporate politics. They called me disloyal, I concluded. But loyalty isn't blind obedience to corruption. It's not staying silent when you see wrong. True loyalty is to principles, to truth, to the people standing beside you in the trenches. That's the loyalty Ironclad promises. The camera shut off. I walked to my office, my real office, with windows and my name on the door. Though the nameplate now read Madeline Carter, CEO and Chief Truth Officer. On my desk was a package. Inside, my old silver line nameplate, Senior Vice President of Strategic Communications, and a note from Caroline, written from federal custody. You won, congratulations. But remember, you became me to beat me. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, was it worth it? See. I held the nameplate, feeling its weight. She was wrong. I hadn't become her. She destroyed from greed. I destroyed from justice. She built on lies. I built on truth. But late that night, alone in my office overlooking the city, I wondered if the distinction mattered to the 800 people unemployed because of our war. Tomorrow, we'd start hiring them. Tonight, I'd carry that weight. The final victory wasn't just winning, it was what we did with the win. 6 months later, I stood in front of what used to be Silverline's headquarters. The chrome letters had been removed from the building, leaving ghost outlines on the granite. A for lease sign hung in the lobby window. The empire that had seemed invincible was now just empty real estate. Ironclad had moved into the building across the street, not to gloat, but because we'd grown to 800 employees and needed the space. 400 were former Silverline staff. The security guard who'd escorted me out that humiliating day now worked our front desk. He'd apologized his first day. I told him we all did what we had to survive. The media landscape had shifted. Our success had inspired dozens of independent media companies. The stranglehold of corporate giants was breaking. Truth was trending. Carolyn had been sentenced to 8 years federal prison. I'd attended the sentencing, sitting in the back row. When they led her away, she'd looked back once. No hatred in her eyes anymore, just a hollow acceptance. The monster she'd created had devoured her. That evening, I walked through our newsroom. Sarah was mentoring junior investigative reporters. Tommy was leading a workshop on authentic content creation. James had built a platform that now hosted thousands of independent creators. Lisa had implemented profit sharing that meant everyone from janitors to executives owned a piece of our success. My office still had that view of downtown Briarwood, but now it included the dead husk of Silverline's building. A daily reminder of what unchecked power became. Marcus, my ex, had applied to Ironclad 3 months ago. I'd approved his hire personally, not from forgiveness, but from practicality. He was talented, and talent shouldn't be wasted. He worked in accounting, far from my orbit. We'd passed in the hall once. He'd nodded, I'd nodded, and that was closure enough. The real measure of victory came in unexpected ways. A young journalist, fired from her first job for refusing to bury a story, joined us with tears in her eyes, saying, "You gave me hope that integrity still matters." A whistleblower chose us over established media because Ironclad won't betray sources for advertiser money. A creator whose content Silverline had stolen finally got credit and compensation. But the sweetest moment was smaller, quieter. I was working late when the cleaning woman, Maria, who'd cleaned these offices for 20 years under different companies, stopped by. "Ms. Carter, I wanted to thank you." "For what, Maria?" "My son works here now, in IT, under Silverline. They wouldn't even look at his resume, no Ivy League degree. You gave him a chance. He loves it here. He earned his spot, Maria. Maybe, but you built a place where earning it was enough." After she left, I stood at my window, looking at Silverline's dead building, then at our living one. Lights burning with people working not from fear but from passion, creating content that mattered, stories that needed telling, truth that couldn't be bought. I pulled out Caroline's note, now creased from reading. You became me to beat me. No, I said aloud to the empty office. I became myself to beat you. The girl who'd traced her fingers over a nameplate, desperate for corporate validation, was gone. The woman who'd believed loyalty meant blind obedience was dead. The executive who'd measured success in titles in corner offices had been cremated in the fire of betrayal. In her place stood someone harder but not cruel. Successful but not corrupt. Powerful but not abusive. My phone buzzed. Tommy had sent a photo from the newsroom, the entire night shift holding up a cake that read, 2 years of truth. I hadn't even realized it was the anniversary of Ironclad's founding. I walked down to join them. My family now, not bound by blood but by battle, not connected by birth but by rebirth. We'd all been broken by the same machine and chosen to build something better from the pieces. Speech, someone called out. I looked at their faces. Former Silverline employees, industry refugees, fresh graduates who'd never known corporate soul-crushing, all here because they believed in what we'd built. 2 years ago, I was fired for refusing to lie. They called it lack of loyalty. They were right. I lacked loyalty to corruption, to silence, to systems that consume people and spit out profits. Nods around the room. Many had similar stories. But here's what I learned. They didn't destroy me by calling me disloyal. They freed me. Freed me to discover that real loyalty isn't to companies or titles or corner offices. It's to truth, to principles, to each other. I raised my paper cup of champagne. We're not successful because we destroyed Silverline. We're successful because we built something better from its ashes. We proved that media can be both profitable and principled. That power doesn't require corruption. That loyalty to truth beats loyalty to lies every time. To Ironclad, someone shouted. No, I corrected. To us, the disloyal, the discarded, the dismissed, the ones who refused to kneel. The cheer that went up could probably be heard in Caroline's cell. Good. Later, alone in my office for the last time that night, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out that old nameplate, Senior Vice President of Strategic Communications. I'd kept it as a reminder. Now it was just scrap metal from a dead empire. I tossed it in the trash. They'd called me disloyal. They'd meant it as condemnation. I'd made it my liberation. Walking out of the building, I passed the empty Silverline Tower one last time. A monument to what happened when loyalty became a weapon, when truth became the enemy, when power forgot its purpose. They'd betrayed me for lack of loyalty. I'd returned as their biggest rival. And in the end, my disloyalty to their corruption had been the most loyal thing I'd ever done, to myself, to my principles, and to everyone who'd been crushed by the same machine. The war was over. We'd won. But the real victory? We'd proved that sometimes. Being called disloyal is the highest compliment you can receive. Thank you so much for listening to this story of betrayal, revenge, and ultimately, redemption. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below, and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and share your thoughts about Maddie's journey. What would you have done in her position? Let's discuss in the comments.